Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Ruby Sturt, here with Harper Bennett and Claudia Reese. And I want to start today by putting you in the middle of the house I grew up in. On any given Tuesday, you had the hum of the oxygen concentrator for my brother Sam, who needs 24-hour care. You had the specific, repetitive audio loops my sister Tash played to self-soothe her severe autism. It was a house entirely built on noise. And yet, the only way I could ever focus was by typing on a 1970s mechanical typewriter. Just clack, 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 ding, over and over.
Wait, the clack and ding was your focus mechanism? In a house that already sounded like a medical ward crossed with an arcade?
Exactly. Because the clack and ding was predictable. But here's why I bring that up. In a house with that much sensory input, you learn very quickly that there is a massive difference between hearing the noise and actually listening to what's happening. The article we're looking at today from Beyond Label Reads talks about the essence of presence. And in a neurodivergent household, presence isn't about eye contact. It's about knowing when the pitch of a vocal stem changes from "I'm happy" to "I'm about to melt down."
Right, which requires a level of emotional presence that most of us are terrible at maintaining. Because when you hear that pitch change, the immediate parental reflex, and I say this as a mother of 2 disabled kids and a project manager who literally gets paid to put out fires, is the fix-it reflex.
The fix-it reflex. Meaning, the second they express a struggle, you're already drafting the 5-point mitigation plan?
Exactly. The article points out that active listening is about validating the underlying emotion. But when my youngest tells me his adaptive PE class is too loud, my brain instantly goes to, okay, I will email the principal. We'll get noise-canceling headphones. I'll review his IEP. I completely bulldoze over the fact that he just wanted me to say, yeah, that sounds incredibly overwhelming.
Bulldozing the emotion. Because solving the problem feels like love, right? But the text specifically says that when parents allow a child to share their viewpoint without interruption, it paves the way for resolutions that build emotional intelligence. When you jump straight to the IEP review, you're communicating, "I don't have time to sit in the discomfort with you."
Solving the problem feels like love. I'm writing that down. Because in occupational therapy, we see this constantly. A caregiver wheels a kid into the clinic. The kid is clearly dysregulated, and the caregiver is frantically offering toys, snacks, iPad games, trying to fix the dysregulation. When sometimes the most active form of listening you can do is just sitting with them in the quiet.
Harper, pull on that thread. Because the article explicitly mentions paying attention to nonverbal cues, body language, tone, facial expressions. How does that translate when the kid maybe is non-speaking or just heavily masking?
Oh, this is my favorite part of the job. In OT, we treat behavior as communication. So if a kid is avoiding eye contact, the text says they might be struggling with a deeper issue. But in a neurodivergent context, avoiding eye contact might just mean, I am listening to you, but looking at your eyes is physically painful right now.
Wait, so eye contact, which is the gold standard of neurotypical active listening, can actually be a barrier?
100%. If I demand eye contact from an autistic client, I am forcing them to spend all their cognitive energy on looking at my pupils, which means they have zero energy left to process the words I'm saying. True active listening means observing their baseline. I look at their shoulders. When those shoulders creep up toward the ears, that's a sensory alert. I listen to their breathing rate. That's the underlying issue the article is talking about.
The shoulders creeping up. That's so real. With my sister Tash, if she started pacing in tight circles, that was her saying, "The environment is too loud." And if we didn't actively listen to the pacing, we'd end up in a crisis.
And there's a psychological weight to that, right? The article says that when family members feel heard, it elevates their self-worth. It alleviates alienation. If your child communicates through pacing or shoulder shrugging and you respond to it appropriately, you are telling them, your language is valid here.
Yes, your language is valid here. That is the exact psychological mechanism that builds resilience. When you reflect back a child's feelings, even if those feelings were expressed by them throwing a textbook, you validate the emotion. You don't validate the textbook throwing, but you validate the frustration behind it.
Okay, so practically speaking, how do we operationalize this? Because the article gives some very specific tactical advice. And as a PM, I love a good tactic.
We know you do, Claudia. Lay it on us.
There's this one exercise, the 5-minute uninterrupted story swap. You set a timer for 5 minutes. One person talks, everyone else listens without a single interruption. Then you discuss. And I'm thinking about trying to do this in my house, where 5 minutes of silence is statistically impossible.
Wait, 5 literal minutes? For a kid with ADHD, 5 minutes of just listening might as well be an endurance sport.
Exactly. But the principle behind it is what matters. It's about creating a structured container. Even if you modify it to 2 minutes or 1 minute, you're building the muscle of suppressing that fix-it reflex. You have to just sit on your hands and listen.
And the article pairs that with reflective listening phrases. The example they use is, "It sounds like you felt overwhelmed and needed some support." Instead of just agreeing or dismissing, you literally echo the essence back.
It sounds like you felt overwhelmed. That is such a powerful linguistic tool because it's an invitation, not an assumption. If you say, "You're angry," the kid might get defensive. If you say, "It sounds like you're frustrated," they can correct you. "No, I'm not frustrated, I'm tired." Boom, you just uncovered the real issue.
And it takes the pressure off the parents, too. We don't have to be perfect mind readers. We just have to be willing to be corrected. The article talks about creating a low distraction environment. In a special needs household, you can't always control the beeping monitors or the sensory needs, but you can put your phone away. You can physically orient your body toward them.
You can turn the advocacy battle into a partnership. When you listen to the pacing, or the shoulders, or the words, you're telling them that they are the primary expert on their own experience. And that changes everything. Claudia, Harper, thanks for being here. For everyone listening, go practice that 5-minute timer, or maybe just a 2-minute one to start. We'll catch you next time.